Carnival Cruise Lines has instituted a youth curfew, and a lot of people have been asking for our opinions about it, and I wanted to have our guest, Julian, who is a youth. I'm curious about the youth opinion of this, since they're the ones most affected. I think a lot of adults, parents and parentless adults, have expressed their opinion, but I don't think we've really heard from an actual youth yet. So first, just a quick review of this new policy from Carnival Cruise Line. They call the Youth Curfew. I'll just read it out quickly from their website. Guests 17 years of age and under who are not accompanied by an adult in their traveling party, 21 years of age or older, must be clear of all public areas by 1 a.m. each evening unless involved in Club O2 or Circle C teen activity. What does this mean? Well, this means anyone up to age 17, you have to be in your room after 1 a.m. every night on the cruise. And one thing that's interesting about this is they're not clear on what the penalty for not adhering to this is. And I think that's probably maybe good because it leaves a lot of options open to them. It leaves the door open. People in Facebook groups and online have been speculating that the family gets kicked off at the next port. I don't see that here. Does Carnival have the right to do that? They do. Will they do that? Unclear. If you have unintentionally or otherwise violated this policy, let us know. Comment on this video. Let us know if you've actually experienced this. What do you think about having to be back in your cabin by 1 a.m. every day of the cruise?
I mean, me personally, it probably won't affect me because usually I am actually in my cabin sometimes a couple hours before that time. Because while I do tend to stay up a bit, sometimes not what I, in the long run, think is a good idea to stay up past 1. But usually when I do stay up past 1, I'm usually not like outside. I doubt this will affect me, but I guess it'll affect some of the night owls that tend to like to wander around the cruise ship at late hours. Because I do enjoy being on the ship at night.
It's nice.
It's nice. You get the sounds of the waves in the oceans and maybe a couple birds passing by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you can, if you're lower, you might be able to smell the ocean as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're on a cabin on the lower decks.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you have a cove balcony, then you can do that and still be in your stateroom. I think your balcony is still allowed. And there's few ships where there's lower decks close to the water that you can be out on, but like a Dream class, there's deck 5, which is somewhat close. Works, yeah. That does come to mind. Yeah.
And I mean, you're still able to do all that stuff if you wanted to past 1 a.m. You just have to be with someone over the age of 21,
adult, basically. Yeah.
But so what do you think? Okay, so you're saying that the policy doesn't affect you directly, but what do you think about the existence of the policy at all?
I think that it seems like a pretty light offense, I guess, to kick someone off at the next excursion.
Which we don't know if they would even do.
Yeah.
Which I doubt they're going to do, because it's... I mean, if you're punishing the entire party for the light actions of one, especially even if it's like only one time, so I don't think they're gonna kick them all off.
No, not unless the whole party has been like doing
other things. You would think,
and it's kind of like this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Like, that's it, you're out of here.
But again, we don't know.
Yeah, I think unless you're doing other things as like while you're breaking curfew, then I could possibly see that. Like if you're maybe being a bit disruptive, like being too loud, or doing things that might impact the staff.
Yeah,
I could see that. But does it say like specifically outside, or can you still be like inside?
So just again, that wording is must be clear of all public areas by 1 a.m. unless Club O2 or Circle C teen activity.
Yeah.
So all public areas. So that would
like
include hallways. That would include the ice cream machine. That would include Lido. I guess the question I'm asking to make it a little bit more pointed is, do you think it's fair to not allow people 17 years of age or younger not out of their cabins after 1 a.m.? Do you think that's fair?
I was a little surprised when I heard it was 17 and under. I would have assumed it would have been a bit shorter of 17. Like I could see like 15 or 16. 17 came as a bit of a surprise. If it was 18, I think I'd be like, that's okay. That just feels a bit too much. I wonder if that will make much of an impact, because I haven't heard of basically that being a problem. Is this trying to prevent youths from being a disruptive influence? Because I would also imagine that that theoretically an adult would have more capability of being a disruptive influence, because they would, because
they have more resources.
They have more resources. Also, they might have a bit more information, so they could also,
they know more. They can be louder, possibly.
Yeah, they might have the knowledge.
Alcohol.
They would, I don't know, maybe if how they were being a disruptive influence might involve getting political, they might understand politics a bit more.
Interesting point.
So, or just general kind of things that can get conversations heated.
Yeah.
But so I would imagine that they would have more capacity, but I could understand if it was more for the younger youths, because they can be loud and hard to control. But I feel like after a certain age, I'm not sure specifically, but I think like around 12 to 13, you start to stop doing that, and also kind of look back and be like, that was kind of annoying to do. So, and
a little regret, a little shame. Yeah. Although really, I mean, it's a lesson, so it served its purpose.
Yeah, and it's a sign that you're maturing. If you're
I think so.
Back and being like, that was a stupid thing for me to do.
I guess that's an interesting point. Like, if you don't regret something you've done in the past, have you really grown?
Yeah, exactly.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
I feel like they're a kind of assuaging a lot of really upset customers, because I am seeing a lot of posts where they're like, oh, kids are running amok and blah 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 blah. Granted, I've only cruised 6 or 7 times. I've never really encountered it to be that big of a problem. Certainly not at night. During the day, I see groups of like 10 or 12 kids, and they'll probably be in the age of 10 to 12, and those will be the ones that I kind of just I kind of identify them, and I'm like, okay, those are the kids I'm just going to avoid, basically. I don't really hear anything I certainly have never encountered the whole knocking on the doors in the cabins 3 a.m. that people are claiming now. The videos of the break of all the viral videos of things that go sideways and like the fights that happen never involve teenagers.
Children at all. It's all been adults.
Always involve adults. Yeah. I've never once seen a viral cruise fight video.
Or any cruise fight
video. That involved youth.
Admittedly, we don't go looking for them, but they show up in our Facebook group from time to time. People share them.
Yeah.
And it's fair.
And
fair
so
game.
I feel like this was a reactionary thing to quiet down some customers that have been really, really loud about it. And they probably have no real intention of actually enforcing it unless their hands have been tied, unless they've kind of been backed into a corner where they're like, okay, we have to enforce this policy. But you're right, it doesn't say what the consequence is. Like, are you going to get sent to the brig? Are you just going to get dragged by your ear back to your cabin? Are you going to get a finger wag? Like, what's going to happen? It's unclear. And maybe they're intentionally, like you said, making that part like we're not going to discuss what the ramifications will be, because it will be a case-by-case basis, right? Like, okay, you are the kid that's slamming, knocking on all the doors, and so we're gonna drag you back to your cabin and have you stay in your cabin for the next 2 days or something, or for the remainder of the cruise.
And so here are my thoughts on it, because I have a bit to say. Buckle up. First off, I already pointed out I think the fundamental flaw of that it does not articulate the punishment. Although, is that a flaw? I think that leaves the door open to them to handle it in the way that situationally is appropriate.
I agree.
And I'm also thinking that sometimes if the punishment is a little too clear, then now you're looking at a menu or a price list.
Yeah.
If your cabin was fined, say, $50 if your child was running around at 2 a.m, well, then for $50, you have the right to let your child run around at 2 a.m. Would be one way of looking at it. Would it be worth it? Yeah. If it's a very clear, if this happens, this is the exact consequence. And so someone might look at that as an additional fee or a tax, or this is the cost of not caring where my kid is, or whatever it might be. Yeah,
cost-benefit analysis. Is this worth it for me? Yeah.
Yeah, so the ambiguity and leaving it up to potentially being kicked off the ship, I think that is actually possibly a very shrewd move by Carnival in this situation. Mm-hmm. Some other thoughts I had on this. One, I think that this is possibly in response to a lot of complaints that I don't know how much has made it to corporate. In what way? Did it come up in surveys, email complaints, guest service complaints, or just things going to John Heald? But I think it was an announcement in the fact that John Heald posted about it.
Yeah.
John Heald posts about a lot of things. Not everyone is like a corporate level announcement. It is to make people aware. Sometimes that's how you find out about the new COVID restrictions.
That's true.
And sometimes it's just here's a funny complaint that I got from someone who makes no sense.
Yeah.
So that's the spectrum of the venue in which it was announced. So how serious it is and how much weight is behind it, I don't know. I want to point out one more flaw before I actually talk about how I think this is useful. And here's the other flaw. And I don't think either of you caught this.
Probably not.
All right. When does the curfew end? It starts at 1 a.m.
Oh.
When does it end? Oh. Are you out of jail at 5 or at 7 or at 10? When does it end? It doesn't say.
It might be dependent on when others... Because I do think there are some services, like I think certain foods at Lido...
And it might be different on every show.
So, I would assume when Lido opens.
Here's my sort of thought about how it is likely to be used. I think that what it really is, I don't think it's about online complainers. I don't think it's about huge complaints. And I don't even think this is a policy that they want to strictly adhere to. This is what I think is going on. Maybe a little conspiracy theory. What I think is if there are children running around and misbehaving and keeping other guests up, say beyond 1 a.m., I think it's a reasonable time, what policy can Carnival point to say control your children? What can they do to take the children to the cabin and say you're not supposed to be here? I think without the curfew... There's nothing written that they can point to if that's challenged by either the parent or the child. And so I think that that's what this is it's sort of a thing where they now have, if they get pushback, they can say, well, you're actually violating the curfew. And I think that they would use that to address other concerns as well. Yeah. Again, this is my speculation, so don't bank on it. Don't behave based on my theory. But if you're running around knocking on doors, if you're screaming, singing, dancing through the halls or something when people are trying to sleep at 2 a.m, then they could basically kind of grab you and say you're in violation of curfew. And then the degree of what behavior was going on might dictate the response. Mm-hmm. But then if a parent got really upset, or even if the child pushed back and they say, you've got no right to, or what did I do wrong? That would be a blanket coverage where, and I've said this for a long time, even going back to our old Six Flags video, no place can put everything in every rule perfectly itemized. If an amusement park had every rule on a sign, the sign would be the largest attraction. You have to have something that covers a multitude of situations and gives you various options for how to deal with all those things. So if there was a separate rule for not knocking on doors that aren't yours, I mean, that's hard because what if it's an honest mistake and you're drunk, do you get a mulligan? Like, how does that work? Not making too much noise in the hallway. How could you dictate what too much noise is? Yeah. Like, there's so many issues and there would be so many individual rules that would be incredibly hard to make it transparent so people could follow and then adhere to it. So that's my personal theory.
There being such a staffing issue with Carnival right now, having a policy in place kind of saying, hey, this is the rule, it might kind of take some of the burden off and some of the pressure off of the security that's maybe having to kind of run around chasing after these kids. Right. Because then you can have some parents going, no, like you need to be back.
Voluntary compliance will
exactly.
be a deterrent.
And so it'll kind of take some of the strain off the security people that, and just staff in general that are like, hey, get these kids. And
so as a deterrent, I think that works. So anyways, I think the big message of the segment here is, if you or someone in your party is 17 years or younger on a cruise ship, after 1 a.m. until, I don't know, be in your cabin. Getting to what you were saying about ages, I don't know that they've set the needle in the right place. And I mean, with all the rule changes, they're probably open to changing it. Yeah. And so then maybe they'll tweak it and, they'll change the ingredients in the soup of this particular rule over time, maybe. My recommendation is I think that it's 12 and under, and I would roll it back to like midnight or even earlier. That's what that's my personal thought.
I disagree on the time. I think max like 14 and under. At max. I can be talking to the 12 thing. Cruising kids in general too. I think by and large, cruising kids tend to be more like Julian because they tend to have grown up in the cruising world. It seems like parents tend to kind of get their kids introduced into cruising at a young age, so they know how to comport themselves and they learn how to comport themselves properly at a young age. And so by the time they hit like 12, 13, 14 and beyond, they know what they're supposed to be doing. I think it's the kids that are Julian's age and around that, between 12 and 17, who are new to cruising. And this is just all of this exciting, fun, new novelty for them. It gets to them. and they behave in ways that either they would ordinarily not behave, or because, they have this, walking mall that they can kind of run around in, and their parents are somewhere else because it's their parents' vacation too. They're like, well, I'm just gonna go buck wild, right? And I think it's the kids that are newer to cruising that are probably more likely to behave that way. Because when I see these kids acting ruckus, I don't see platinum badges on them. I don't see diamond badges on them. The kids that are like they have their hands folded in their lap and they're having a good time and they're being polite. These are the kids with the gold, platinum, and diamond badges, right?
Yeah, or a milestone cruise one.
Exactly. It's the blue card kids that you see that are like
and red sometimes,
and red cards that are just running amok, and I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, don't like to do the color shaming, but
I don't generally either, but I think it's with kids.
The sample size, yeah. But even then, like I've been on 23 cruises and I haven't seen egregious behavior, so it's only like the slightly more irritating. I just think if you're a teenager and it's the middle of the night and you want to get some ice cream or a lemonade or a hot chocolate or something, you should be able to.
Yeah,
that's my thinking. So let us know in the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are on this. We'd be very curious because it's such a new idea and it doesn't sound fully formed. It doesn't sound fully complete. It's probably an evolving situation. We'd be very curious what your thoughts and reactions are because we're still processing the news ourselves.
Yep.